All right, so here's a question. What makes or breaks a MMO game? For me, you know what ruins an MMO is when I'm logging in and I'm forced to do dailies and it makes it feel like a job. So I've been playing MMOs for many years, since World of Warcraft, and I've kind of hit that point where I can usually tell within the first week if the game's going to lose me and essentially not make me want to play the game, right? For me, the moment I feel the game is telling me how to play and forcing me to do dailies in order to progress my character, that's when I typically stop playing an MMO. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a game with systems and complex systems, right? I like having things to do, but when it feels like the entire structure of the game is laser focused on doing the same boring quest, that resets every day over and over and over, and you're just locked behind those quests to even make progress in that MMO. I just personally can't do that type of system, right? For me, it's the play how you want type of freedom. Like that's what I enjoy. That's kind of what makes or breaks it for me. And games like Black Desert Online, even with all of its flaws, it's got a lot of flaws. I think BDO gets that part really well. And here's the thing about dailies, right? They're fine in theory, right? It keeps you logging in, you have something to do. Cool. But it becomes this main core loop. The game literally builds itself around them, and suddenly your entire gaming session is just clear these 3 quests, right? Or do your daily dungeon, or run your weekly raid, and then, turn in your login rewards, right? It becomes this constant cycle that is required. And for most MMOs with dailies, if you miss one day, you feel like you've kind of fallen behind, right? And I get it. Developers are wanting to keep their player numbers up, but there's a difference between engagement and obligation. When I log into a game and my brain already knows the next hour is going to be the exact same sequence I ran yesterday, that's not really an exciting routine, right? That's a routine that's a chore. It's a chore list. And I don't want to wake up and feel like I have to log in because if I miss a day, then I'm behind, right? I want to log in whenever I want to log in and do whatever I want and still make meaningful progress with my character. And I think that's a big difference. Another thing that absolutely kills it for me is linear progression. When every player is funneled down the same path, the same exact zones, the same leveling route, it just doesn't really feel that good, right? MMOs are supposed to feel like these unique worlds that you can explore at any time, and I think BDO does a pretty good job with that, but also ESO does a pretty good job because it allows you to do any of the stories and or explore any part of the map at any time because the game scales to your character. So if you're more interested in a specific quest line, then you could go do that. So an example, I could never really get into Final Fantasy 14 because it's literally locked behind a main story. And if you wanted to skip that story, which is hundreds and hundreds of hours to get to endgame, you have to pay a story skip to get to endgame, which is crazy, right? I'd rather the story be optional and have the ability to go back to the main story whenever I want to. So yeah, going back to BDO. BDO is my main game. It's been my main game since 2016. And let me tell you, it's not perfect, not even close. But when it comes to freedom, BDO does a really good job with that. And you might say BDO is no different and it's just a repetitive grind fest. And I would say you're not wrong, but there are a few elements that does make it different. For instance, you're not forced to grind a specific number of mobs, right? If you just want to hop on for 30 minutes, that's fine, right? You're still going to make progress. Now, granted, it won't be as much progress as someone who grinds for, say, like 2 hours, but you're not tied down to a certain amount of objectives that force you to log in at a certain time and play for a certain amount of time, right? There's really no required dailies that you have to keep up with. Now, there are a couple things that could be considered dailies, like if you're trying to go for your T10 horse, or if you're trying to go for the Jatina pin accessory, but those technically are not required, right? For the most part, you're going to log in and just play however you want to. Also with BDO, if you want to go and do some life skills, then you can go do that, right? If you want to go fish all day, go for it. If you want to go barter out in the ocean, aye, Captain. If you want to go and do some sniper rifle hunting, you can do that, right? If you want to go and grind mobs in the middle of nowhere for silver, no one's stopping you. And at least with BDO's grinding, the combat is so good and so enjoyable. That's why I enjoy grinding mobs. Now, if it was like tab targeting, I probably couldn't do it. But either way, right, there's 1,000 different ways you can progress, and none of them feel like a forced checklist. And that's huge, right? That's what I want from an MMO, is that feeling where the game doesn't decide your adventure for you, but instead you decide the adventure that you want. Games like Lost Ark and even like Throne and Liberty, when I played them, in order to like progress your character, you were locked behind all of these dailies and weeklies, which is one of the prime reasons why I just stopped playing them. And maybe now that fundamental loop of the dailies and the weeklies has changed, which if it has, let me know down in the comments if that's the case. But I really enjoyed playing Lost Ark and Throne and Liberty until I reached the point where I was gated behind those dailies or weeklies, and I just couldn't do it. So I just stopped playing. And I guess maybe that's a me thing, but I think the best MMO moments I've ever had weren't planned, right? They weren't doing dailies or this linear quest line, but more so of like this spontaneous dumb decisions that spiraled into something memorable. But yeah, I'm sure some of you disagree, and that's fair, right? Let me know down in the comments kind of what makes or breaks an MMO for you, right? I want to hear you. But let's take a look at some of the people in the community of kind of what they're saying. All right, so let's take a look here at this post and some of the comments. And I've already given my take at the very beginning of the video. So according to you, what makes or breaks a MMO game? The first one here, the people you play with. That is a very, very good point. That's a really good point. Yes, the people you play with can definitely make or break a game, a MMO game. The thing though with that is, especially when you have a lot of friends, maybe in real life friends, and they want you to play a game, and you end up playing the game with them for what, maybe a month, and then they're like, peace. And then you're just kind of by yourself playing the game all by yourself, which is kind of one of those unfortunate things that always happens. I feel like 100% this. WoW to me is a very boring game solo, and one of the best games when you have a good guild. Yeah, and I really think that is a lot of MMOs, right? Making sure you're in a really good interactive guild, not a dead guild, but an interactive, alive guild. I really think that can really make the game a lot more enjoyable, especially with BDO. Stamina and daily attendance. No, I don't want to play your game every day like clockwork, so I won't get left behind. I was about to say, wait, hold on. Yep, that is spot on. Dailies, I like to play on my own pace, and dailies are just a form of FOMO. I like dailies, but only if they're not a priority. I like when dailies are like a side. You don't call her every night, but when you do, she's there. Oh my goodness. I think dailies are okay. It's just one of those things where it can't be required in order to progress your character. It just can't be required. Dailies are fine, but when it forces you to do the same thing over and over in order to progress your character, that's when it becomes an issue. This is the only answer. This doesn't just apply to MMOs, though it's most common in that genre. Any game requiring attendance with the guarantee of getting left behind without it is a hard pass. Gaming is supposed to be fun. Yes, FOMO equals stress. So true. This is why I stopped so many. Yep. I like the older MMO that doesn't rely on rotations, but instead is more reactive. Final Fantasy is a classic example. You don't weapon skill at will. You wait until a partner can weapon skill and you create this amazing skill chain. A mage isn't spamming spells. Instead, they're reading the battle and waiting to cast the perfect spell. The magic bursts off of the skill chain. The melee is just put together. Yeah, I don't know. I can't really speak too much on that. I think with Final Fantasy 14, like in like the combo, pretty much already, like it tells you what to press pretty much. I feel like that's kind of boring. Like there's no really uniqueness to that. Like you can't like free ball it essentially. Final Fantasy design for this reason. I like the Final Fantasy design for this reason, but also think rotations, priority systems are more fun than passively auto attacking to generate the weapon skills. Some mix of both would be nice. The amount of social and in-game content. I think that's really important. Yeah, having both of those kind of combined. Pay to win clearly. Pay to win clearly. Yeah, I'm assuming pay to win would definitely break this person for sure. Yeah, definitely the easiest answer. And that's another valid aspect too that can make or break it is the game too much pay to win? Right? Are you having to spend even like hundreds of dollars a month just to kind of keep up? Right? Like with BDO, it's really not worth it because you could spend thousands and thousands of dollars and really not get anywhere, you know, based on like your RNG. Now, granted, you can like put the costumes and sell it on the marketplace, but again, it's going to cost thousands and thousands of dollars and it's really not worth it at the end of the day. There isn't a single thing that really makes an MMO. You need most of it to be at least decent. You can break it with only one thing though. Bad combat, ESO. Dude, so many people hate ESO's combat. It's so funny. No content, new world, which that has improved. I don't know when the last time this person's played New World, but that has gotten better. Unfulfilling grind, Lost Ark, and Throne and Liberty. Pay to win, take your pick. I think those are all solid points, right? The combat, the content, what's the purpose of the grind, right? And is it too much pay to win? I think that's a really solid comment, other than like maybe some of the games that was chosen, but I think in general, when you look at the whole emphasis of it, right? I think that's a huge part of what can make or break a game. Combat, content. Why are you doing this content? And then the pay to win. This right there, if I'm honest, New World is in a great position now. Yeah, see, exactly. And other than the insane bugs at launch, its core always had a lot of potential, but you can't run an MMO for 3+ years before starting to have decent content. Players will never go back. Yeah, you got to start off strong first, right? You can't make a game and then hope that people will play it. So, you know, when you're continuously making content for it, people will come back, right? You gotta, if anything, just keep delaying the game until you know for sure it's ready. Because once people play it, and if there's no content in it or it just doesn't feel good, they're not gonna come back, most likely. And even though the game might be way better 4 years from now, it's one of those things where like you already tried it and you didn't like it, but the game has changed, and like how are you supposed to know that, right? Like, so yeah, I think it's super important to try to get everything fleshed out before the game's even ready to go, which kind of sucks because we, especially in our society, we always want things now. So it's kind of hard. Any new MMO should put as much effort as possible at being okay in every way. It's better to be just fine than having glaring issues that make people flee. Okay, here we go. Nice little post. The top 3 things an MMO needs to be successful. Class roles. Many modern MMOs these days try to avoid the Trinity format or allow players to change their class choice in order to circumvent having to stick to the chosen role. It works far better when you have a purpose, understand what that is, and fill that space in a group or guild activities. I don't know. Yeah, I would like to see the research on something like this. Like, sure, it does give you a purpose in terms of a group, but let's be honest, especially a lot of older individuals, like we have very limited amount of time to play in a day. And when we're forced to have to play at a certain time, it becomes quite difficult, right? So it's nice to be able to not have to rely on a specific class role, and you can kind of play whenever you want to, right? Like you can pretty much play all the roles that you need to. So I don't really necessarily agree with this. I think it has its purposes for sure. But I think that's one of the reasons why I got away from like the Trinity system, like World of Warcraft and whatnot. Because when you play a game like ESO or BDO or other games that give you that freedom of a class, essentially, then it's nice not having to rely on other people, right? You can kind of heal yourself. You can do the content at your own pace. You're not like forced to be on a certain time. But I can definitely see. I mean, that's a good point. That's a good point. And some people, I'm sure, prefer that, and some people don't. I would definitely like to know the information or research on something like that. Community, instancing, queues, and too much emphasis on solo play have ruined the shared world feeling. Modern MMOs feel like a single player game with the occasional of other people rather than a vibrant world you just one part of. We need the massively multiplayer part to be more than a number at server select. The vast majority of memories people have of their favorite MMO experiences involve other players, friends, or guild mates, and shared experiences. I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree. And I think it's important to have both like a single player, but also a group player into the game, right? And allow you to progress your character however you would like, right? If you want to be in a more group oriented kind of progression path, then you can do that and still progress your character. Or if you do have like a limited schedule and you can't play whenever, then being able to still have that solo player progression path available is super important, right? So I think this is another good solid point, and it just kind of comes down to your preference. And I would say again, for the older individuals, it's a lot more difficult to try to schedule around group content. So I think it's best to be able to have both aspects into a game. A satisfying in-game loop. This gets overlooked a lot lately, which is why games don't have the staying power of older MMOs. Put simply, there has to be interesting progression at max level. It has to feel different than whatever the leveling experience was. And it has to offer rewards and challenges that make you care to do it repetitively. Yeah. That's a really solid point. And I think I think they say it really well. I'll add a build def in there or something. If you want me to dump hundreds of hours into your game, there better be a multitude of viable builds for each class. Nothing worse than everyone being stuck with the same build because it's that much better than the rest. That's a good point. Build variety. Yep. Combat systems and the ease of interaction without voice. Most of my MMO playing is done with a controller on the sofa, streamed from my PC to my tablet with my wife sat next to me. If voice chat is essential, I won't play the content. There you go, right? So I think it's important you have to capture both players, the solo player and that more group-oriented player. Everyone seems to be getting downvoted for disliking voice chat, but I'll throw my agreement with you. Also, I'm in my 40s, I have a wife, and like you, we often play games together on laptops side by side. Voice chat isn't happening. Yeah, I mean, it's very true. But to be honest, I've always been against voice chat for most MMOs. Even when it started getting traction when WoW came out, I was against it, especially for raids where people early on in that game seemed inattentive at the best of times. People not catching important instructions was a nightmare. Ended up easier switching back to text so they can say done and be accountable when finished reading a tactical plan for a raid boss. Okay, yeah. I load voice chat. I type quickly and speaking and hearing a little bit immediately throws me out of immersive experience. I want good combat, in-game character customization like transmog mounts, obtainable fairly easily, and special ones from hard or rare content. Yeah, giving you kind of a purpose, right, to go grind out certain things like costumes. Casual activities without limits. Mm-hmm. Right, because even like with dailies and weeklies, right, there's a limit. You can only do it so many times. Gathering and crafting professions with auction house. The graphics have to have a certain charm to grab my attention. Yep. I like threads like this. My answer would be combat style. New World and Throne and Liberty Combat didn't like much. Was a mage type player for reference. Immersion within an online world. Oh yeah, I mean this is huge too, right? Because we're all just trying to kind of escape our real world and kind of go into a fantasy world, right? Where we can kind of just de-stress and yeah, just kind of do our own thing. There's no one reason, in my opinion, and of course this is all subjective. For me, it's fulfilling in-game gameplay loop, immersive world, and story. Yeah, I think those are all important. WoW has a relatively good in-game gameplay loop, but I absolutely don't care about the story in the game anymore. The world feels soulless and I can't get immersed into it. Yeah, that's fair. And I think the way they present the story too is not that great. Final Fantasy has a great story, but not immersive world due to not being open world and not fulfilling in-game gameplay loop. And that's the thing. So going back to my original kind of starting of the video, like, you know how I said you're like locked into doing the main story. Final Fantasy has a great story and that's awesome, but I don't want to be locked into doing that story only. Like if I want to go do something else in-game wise, then I want to be able to do that and then come back to the main story. So yeah, I think the story in Final Fantasy is great. I just want to be able to have the freedom to play it whenever I want to. From a gameplay perspective, I play MMOs for the better gear, the raids, dungeons with friends. From a personal perspective, I play MMOs to be immersed in a fantasy world. Yep, that's ideally magical and beautiful with interesting elements and cultures. Yeah, I agree with that person. Gameplay is the most important. If gameplay isn't fun, then it doesn't matter how good the story world is. Final Fantasy. Solid point. Gameplay, content, gameplay loop, world design, immersion, story, other things, something like that. That's a pretty good post. Depends on context for me to play or not. Combat, if it has the generic soulless stand in front of each other, pressing numbers on your hotbar like WoW, that's an instant quit. Yeah, that's why it's hard for me to go back to WoW. Crafting, if crafting is just get material, press a button to generate an item with no interesting mechanics regarding materials or the actual crafting portion, that's also a pass, assuming the game has no other outstanding features. Yeah. And again, this is all subjective, right? One person might agree with this, another person might not. And I think that's important. That's why it's so hard to make that perfect MMO. It's hard. It's hard because it's hard to capture everyone's perspectives. Make meaningful character progression, choices for your character, easy to learn, hard to master combat. Yeah, snappy, responsive combat, sense of community with other players. All top choices probably for me as well. Break, daily, weekly quest. Yep, pay to win of any kind. Yeah, I agree. FOMO progression systems. Horrible combat, no variety in character progression. Example, all players unlock a gear set at a certain level and have no other choices in gearing and modifying their characters. I can agree with that to some extent. I think when you have kind of the same gear though, it allows for better balancing. But yeah, I can definitely agree with some of that for sure. Gender locked classes. It's so crazy in today's age that we still have to talk about gender locked classes. Yeah, I'm looking at you, BDO. Makes no sense. Like, allow us to play whatever class that we want to, or whatever gender that we want to play, right? If we want to play male, that's great. If you want to play female, that's great. Why are we forced to play a specific gender? That just never really made much sense to me. And it's like, oh, it's about the story of the character. You can do that with with regardless of whatever gender you want to be. It's just mind blowing. Breaks tab targeting, yes. Forced grouping, yes. PvP focused, I enjoy PvP. I think you have to have a good blend of both. Holy Trinity, yes. Crafting centric, again, I think you have to have a good blend of both. Raiding, I would like to have, like for BDO, I'd like to have some raiding. Instance heavy, yeah, I agree with that too. Makes open world, most definitely. Solo friendly, yes, but also has to have a decent amount of group content too. Lengthy time to reach level cap, but shorter advancement thresholds. Okay. Small group PvE focused. Yeah. I think that's perfectly fine. Detailed and lengthy questing centric. Yeah, I feel like there's not really been a good MMO that does like really good questing, other than like if you play old school RuneScape. That questing, wow, really cool. Like there's murder mystery quest in old school RuneScape that is amazing. It's really good. No kill task or fetch quest. Yeah, those are just boring and stupid. Yeah, as like a main type of quest. Like it's fine if you're doing like something else, like a daily, I guess, or a daily that's not required. Sure, right, go kill these mobs and get this reward for it type thing. But it should, like, that should not be like in a main story quest line. That's just boring. Very in-depth and detailed itemization, higher levels of character progression systems, producer focus monthly, or at the very least timely story arches as the primary driver of content. Okay, yeah, sure. In short, I want an Asheron's Call 2.0, modern graphics and combat focused. I don't even know what that is. I'll have to look that up and see. So yeah, you can see there's a lot of different aspects that an MMO might have that may break or make a game for you, right? A MMO game. Again, this is all subjective, right? But I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments on what makes or breaks a game, a MMO game for you. Please let me know down below. I look at and read every comment. But as always, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.
Sunsets on that desert sky. It's just you and I.